Imagine your life financially underwater, weighed down by a mountain of debt. Fresh out of college, you owe 4 times as much as you make. While others are closing on their first home or buying a new car, you're struggling to pay your student loan interest. And the light at the end of the tunnel is 20 long years away. We'll talk to a Connecticut teacher who is fighting an uphill battle with student loans. And we talk to a business professor at Quinnipiac University to help us understand why there's so much student debt. Hi, I'm Steve Saunders. Thanks for joining us. I'm standing here on the University of Connecticut campus on this brisk evening here in Storrs. UConn is home to the nationally recognized UConn Huskies, and this campus is one of over 4,000 college campuses across the United States where high school seniors cross the threshold into post-secondary education. But this campus in particular represents a starting point for the woman you're about to meet. While it can be considered a start to her professional career as an educator, it is also a starting point to a life with a heavy burden, a mountain of student debt. In the United States, the concept of student financial aid is not new. A financial system to help students attend college existed 100 years before our founding fathers signed the Declaration of Independence. And the first official student lending program was developed in 1840 in Cambridge at then Harvard College. Now, a century and a half later, student loans have grown into a common method of paying for school today. And with 60% of college graduates leaving their four-year school in the red, a new type of financial burden is being felt like never before. In fact, in 2010, the total amount of outstanding student loan debt surpassed credit card debt in America, and according to some financial experts, 2012 is expected to be the year when total student loan debt crosses the $1 trillion mark. And someone who knows all too well what it means to be in debt is Kristen. Kristen is a Connecticut high school music teacher, a choir director, and she is one of more than 35 million Americans who live day in and day out with the pressure of paying back student loans. Kristen grew up in a typical middle-class home and attended West Warwick High School in Rhode Island. There she played softball and the flute and sang in the choir. Kristen was an honor student who knew what she wanted, driven to do what she loves most, to work with music.
It's a way of expressing yourself beyond words, and I think that really, especially as a student, really unlocks something inside of you. And so I love teaching because I love bringing that out of people.
But back in the spring of 2004, Kristen's high school graduation was approaching, and just like most college-bound seniors, Kristen found herself presented with a decision: to go to an in-state school in Rhode Island or go to UConn at a much higher cost.
I knew that I was going to be taking out a lot of loans. I think as a 17-year-old, you don't grasp what that means. You don't look at the situation and say, oh, when I get out of school, it's going to be really hard to make ends meet. It's more of, I'm ready for my life to start, and I need to do whatever to do to get it to be that way. And because I was going into music, I also needed to be in the best school that I could be in. And so the University of Connecticut really was the best option for me, even though it cost the most money.
It was a decision for Kristen that ultimately affected her livelihood just 5 years later, when her student loans shifted from the status of in-school deferred to repayment. When your loans moved into repayment from the grace period, what were you feeling at that point?
It was scary. I remember talking to my mom and saying, Mom, how am I gonna pay this and pay rent and do all of these other things? And I don't live spending a whole bunch of money on eating out or, doing a whole bunch of social things. It was the things I was talking to my mom about were, how am I gonna have groceries, and how am I gonna pay my electric bill, and how am I gonna pay rent on top of having to pay student loans?
Up next, we find out just how heavy Kristen's student loan debt burden really is. And later, we discuss a program to help with student loan payments called income-based repayment. And will this program help Kristen? We'll answer this question and more after the break.